You like adventure?
Yes.
I
Yes.
did. I craved it. An audience, applause, excitement. And there I was. Ethel Knudsen. With a name like that, where do you think there was? Where do you think I might be from?
Minnesota.
Minnesota, yeah.
I know, he didn't raise his hand, but he said it. Minnesota. Ah, yes, I was born in Minnesota in 1897. Not much went on in Minnesota. It snowed. It was cold. But Papa was a carpenter. And he wasn't just some dumb Scandinavian carpenter. Oh no, Papa was a smart man. Papa read. He read the newspaper. And in the newspaper, he read about the 1910 census. And the fastest growing city in all the United States was on the Pacific coast. And that city had a harbor. It had a film industry. Well, Papa figured it had opportunity for someone who could build. So Papa packed us all up and took us from Minnesota to Long Beach, California. There I was, Ethel Knudsen. I was 16 years old and I wanted fun and I wanted excitement. So where do you think I went in Long Beach? The Pike. Of course I went to the Pike with the cyclone racer and the plunge and all the rides and all the handsome young men. Oh yes, the young men who flew their airplanes. And they did stunts out over the ocean. They did stunts so people would come to the Pike. Oh, and there I was. I was at the Pike too, and I met Frank Champion, Mr. Champion. He built an airplane, called it the Long Beach Flyer. He built it in the basement of the Virginia Hotel, that big resort hotel. Well, I don't know how he got that out of the basement, but he got his airplane out. He flew that airplane, not that one, but his, all across the United States. Had a big banner at the end, said, Long Beach, California Resort City. First person to ever advertise by air. Then there was Earl Doherty. Met Mr. Doherty. Now, Mr. Doherty was another aviator. He built his own airfield right over on Willow and an American, I think you call it Long Beach Boulevard now. Mr. Doherty sort of was a highfalutin. He gave it a fancy name, called it Chateau Tardy. I don't know what it means, but it sounds pretty impressive. It wasn't just those handsome young men and their flying machines, though. They were balloonists. Right there in the middle of the Pike, they'd step into those baskets. They'd go up maybe 1,200 feet in the air and jump out with the parachute in their back. And one of those parachutists, balloonists, was a woman. Her name was Teeny Broadwick. Well, Teeny and I became best friends. Teeny had an older brother. He was really tall and handsome. His name was JL. I thought JL was just the bee's knees. So I hung out down at the Pike, watching all my aviator friends and talking with my friend Teeny and watching her brother JL. But remember I told you about something else in Long Beach. There was a movie studio. So if I wasn't down at the Pike, I went to the Balboa movie studio right over there, that side of town. They were making silent movies. But Fatty Arbuncle and Buster Keaton, they'd have their name in big, big letters, and there I was, trying to be an actress. I hung out all I could. I did anything they'd let me. And you know, some of those old movies, you know, they put the stars' names in big letters and then other people in small letters. And if you look really, really fast where they get to the extras, you might see my name in little tiny letters. Ethel Newton. Well, I dropped out of school because there was just too much to do and too many exciting things between the Pike, the movie studio, and then, you know, my good friend Teeny. Well, Teeny got married, and she started thinking maybe being a wing walker wasn't the best occupation for a woman who might become a mother one of those days, so she stepped out of the family business and I stepped in. I became a wing walker. JL, he'd pilot things, and just like Teeny and JL who tested parachutes for extra money, JL and I, we'd do that too. JL was a really good influence on me. Now, you know, when I told Mama that I was dropping out of school when I was 16 years old, Mama was not happy. But when I went home and told Mama that now I wasn't just dropping out of school, I'm going to be dropping out of the air from an airplane, why, Mama was just plumb worried sick. But I went to Mama and I said, oh, Mama, it doesn't matter if I died tomorrow because I've met my life's ambition. I said, oh, Mama, it's not the moments that you live, but it's the moments that leave you breathless. And I had my moments. I had over 600 successful jumps. I told you JL was really smart. I mean, he'd made me go back to school and get my diploma. I was 23 years old when I had that important piece of paper. JL and I we were flying all over and testing those parachutes. JL had just designed a new parachute. It was in February. It was a beautiful day. It was 1920, February 12th. And we went to the San Francisco Air Show so that JL had that new parachute tested. It was a beautiful day. And I went up in the plane. JL was down there on the ground. Went up, oh, probably 1,200 feet. Just like always, I got ready for my jump. Put on my goggles. Put on my gloves. 1,200 feet, it's pretty cold up there. Stick. I'm all ready. So, just like always, I step out on that wind. Just like always, I take a deep breath. I feel that wind flying by my hair. Just like always, I stepped off that wing and I pulled that ripcord. And I pulled that ripcord. And I pulled and I pulled and I pulled and splat. I landed feet first. I died instantly. I had to call home, tell Mom and Papa. They're having a big dinner party. Friends from Nantucket, Minnesota. Instead of a party, they started planning a funeral. I was buried 3 days later. They brought my body back to Long Beach. Had a big funeral service over at Trinity Lutheran Church. Mom and Papa, they got a big headstone, really fancy one. Put my picture on it. So there I am. Seems like lots of my friends had tragic ends. Remember I told you about Mr. Champion? Now Mr. Champion, he went off on a tour with this Avatrix Kathleen Stinson. He was going to be her mechanic. They went to a huge air show in Japan, Kochi, Japan it was. 100,000 people, spectators in the morning. They went up. They did every stunt they knew how to do successfully. That afternoon, peaceful, quiet afternoon, Frank took the plane up just to practice nice, easy corkscrew turns. And everything is going fine until the wing fell off the plane and he crashed into the ground. He died instantly. Then there's Mr. Doherty. You know, I told you about Mr. Doherty. Has that field, Doherty Airfield, named after him. Anybody live on Earl Avenue? Earl Avenue, that was named after him here in Long Beach. Well, he's a little flamboyant. He took his plane up flying when he got married, piloting it himself. He gave all his guests a big certificate. Said, I took part in an aerial joyride. And put the date and what had really happened. That man was so reckless, so daring, why he had near fatal accidents just time after time. But it was a quiet morning like today. It took two friends, just off on a little sightseeing flight out over the Pacific, coming in to land right up the Compton Airport. Simple, simple flight. Everything going fine. And the wing fell off and the plane crashed with one of the biggest booms heard in the city, they said. 5 feet into the ground that plane went. Well, they knew one of the bodies had to be Mr. Doherty because they knew he was the pilot. They weren't sure about the two passengers. One of the mechanics at the airport remembered that the editor of the Press Telegram then, a Mr. Morrison. Mr. Morrison. He was one of the victims. And the other man was Elmer Wood, who had owned the Pacific Engraving Company. Important men, so they had a huge funeral for them. And at the funeral, they read a poem. And I'd kind of like to share that poem with you because I think it gives you an idea how so many of us were part of early aviation. As those planes went overhead and as we flew in. The heavens' heights are lonely. Who travels them must fare, unfriended and for company. Rely only on empty air. Well, now you're all looking so sad. And I didn't mean to make you sad, because remember what I told Mama. It's not the moments you live, but the moments that leave you breathless. And I and my friends who were flying here in Long Beach, we had our moments. I thank you, Long Beach Historical Society. And if you'd like, come up and see this picture and see how pretty I was when I was 23.